This fireside chat is giving a very in-depth view to what a CPT session will look like, what a cognitive processing therapy session will look like. And it shows, the interaction about homework. It shows the efforts at challenging some of those beliefs, challenging some of those stuck points that are so crucial within treatment. We also have an opportunity to get a little more briefly into what a prolonged exposure follow-up might look like. And this is the type of discussion that you could expect after, a few sessions with your client. This is the point where you would have identified your specific trauma. You would have gone through the imaginal exposure, and you would start to develop that understanding, that processing of the specific event. You've revisited it, you've discussed it numerous times in session. What I expect to hear in those moments is the individual, us talking about how we were feeling between session, what we did in terms of the homework, what we didn't do. We start off checking in first with, all right, hey, did you listen to your recording? That recording is from the previous session. We would have been in there, you'd been talking about the trauma, we would have started the session and then gone for maybe 6, 7, 8 minutes, and it would be recorded, ideally on your phone or if you have a tape recorder so that you have your own privacy. And you would have talked through it, and again, and again, and again. And that can range from, 3 to 5, sometimes more repetitions. It really comes down to the length. But what we care about there is we're able to get those repetitions in session. Then outside of session, each day, you'd be listening to it, and you'd be feeling some of that distress. You'd be noticing the anxiety, you'd be noticing maybe some of that fear activation, some of the discomfort. And each day, you'd be listening to it, and then you'd feel the distress come down slightly. And then come down slightly, and then come down slightly. And that's the progression we expect. That's the imaginal exposure that's happening between session. The in vivo piece is a little bit different, and this is where we get a great opportunity to be creative. Sometimes we're talking about a specific scent that reminds us of the trauma. Something like a candle, something like a smell in a restaurant. And that's a great example of where maybe some of that avoidance would be taking away from our lives. We want you going to the restaurants you want to go to. We want you having fun the way you want to. And we don't want a particular scent to be cueing the trauma. We want that scent to be independent of the trauma. So in that hierarchy, we might have someone saying, all right, going to this restaurant and standing outside for 15 minutes. That would be my goal. Well, we would pretty clearly want to define, all right, we want to get you to 15, maybe 30 minutes. And we want the distress to come down before you leave. And ideally, talking with that person, talking with you after that session, you would say, all right, between sessions I went on Monday. And I was able to stay for 30 minutes and the distress stayed up. And I went Tuesday and Wednesday, it was the same. And then Thursday I went and it came down a great bit. It came down, cut in half. And then Friday I went, and Friday it was boring. I really didn't want to be there. And that's telling us something. It's saying, great, first of all, there's that mastery. There's that decrease in the distress, the habituation, and now we're ready to move up that hierarchy. Now we're able to progress. You can hear where the distress would be happening, but you're also seeing that person start to overcome and get back into those aspects of their life that are important to them. Now, you might be having some very common thoughts right now. What if I don't do the homework? What if I have trouble with it? That's something we expect. This is very challenging. It's not something we'll encourage, but it's something we expect. In any change, there's times in which it's slow or it's challenging. If you came in and said, hey, look, I listened to the tape 3 times this week, and the other days, I just had a rough day at work and I couldn't bring myself to do it. We're not going to reinforce that. We're going to say, all right, great job doing what you did. We want to get to every day of the week. That's our goal because we really need that consistency to really get the benefits of treatment. And let's say with that hierarchy, let's say with the in vivo exposure where we said, all right, I'm going to go to this particular part of town that I know is safe, but makes me uncomfortable, and I wasn't able to do it. We may have bit off more than we could chew. We may have been looking at something that's higher in that hierarchy than was appropriate at that time, and that's okay. We can get really creative and start to separate that. We can say, okay, rather than go and stand on the sidewalk, let's go and ride around in our car. Let's scale it back a little bit. We can try to find ways to problem solve, and we really want to make sure that we're in that hierarchy in the place that you can feel that mastery, you can make that progress. Overall, the idea of prolonged exposure is we're going to take you out of your comfort zone, but not out of your safety zone.